The lubrication system actually has 5 functions, which are to lubricate, seal, cool, protect against corrosion, and clean the engine. Let's take a look at each of these functions. As I said, the basic purpose of the lubrication system is to prevent the engine from wearing out. And this means lubricating the engine by maintaining a slippery surface between moving parts. The oil has to be able to adhere to the metal surface and resist being shoved away when either hot or cold. The next function is to seal. As you know, immediately following the burning of the fuel in the combustion chamber of an engine, gases are formed which are under high pressure. It's the pressure of these gases on the piston head which causes the engine to run. So it's necessary to keep these gases from leaking past the piston rings. To seal the gases in, the oil film on the cylinder walls makes up for microscopic unevenness in the fit between the rings and the walls. The film fills in any gaps through which the gases might escape. The next function is cooling. Now, I'm sure you're already aware that the great mass of unwanted heat in an engine is removed by the cooling system.
Right.
But there are parts in the engine that rely on oil to cool them. Bearings are a good example of components that are cooled by oil. What happens is that relatively cool oil is pumped in, lubricates, and then at the same time absorbs heat, then carries the excess heat back to the crankcase where it is dissipated. The next function of the lubrication system is corrosion protection. It's important to remember that there are always some combustion products that blow past the rings, and the blow-by is typically at its worst when the engine is cold and there is a rich air-fuel mixture. The blow-by contains a variety of combustion waste products. These include water, unburned fuel, soot, carbon, and acids. And many of these materials remain in the engine and contaminate the oil. That's why it's important for the oil to contain additives that coat the metal components of the engine to prevent corrosive damage. The final function of the lubrication system is to keep the engine clean. The oil does this by keeping contaminants in suspension. This is extremely important because if the contaminants remain in the engine, they can build up, causing deposits. Take a look at this severe sludge problem. What happened is that blow-by products escaping past the piston rings were absorbed by the oil and formed in the sludge. Additives within the oil should have forced these compounds to be dispersed in the oil, not to collect in the engine. With the waste materials dispersed properly in the oil, the filter can trap the larger particles, and then any of the contaminants too small to be filtered are removed right with the oil during an oil and filter change. Well, so far we've discussed the purpose and functions of the lubrication system. Let's review them one more time before we move on. The basic purpose of the lubrication system is to prevent the engine from wearing out. It accomplishes this through the 5 functions, which are to lubricate, seal, cool, protect from corrosion, and clean.